Very good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Hope you all calm down. So let us sit straight before I start my talk. Let us chant Omkar 3 times. Sit straight, please. Take a deep breath. Once again. Last round. Thank you. So I have got a topic to talk about meditation and mental health. I'm more into looking at the neuroscience behind meditation. And I'm gathered that you had a long day today, right from morning, bombarded with a lot of information. I'll try to make these things very simple. Okay? So if yoga goes thousands of years ago, the research in yoga also happened thousands of years ago. Why I say this is because yoga was something to do with self-experience. Meditation is a self-experience. You cannot go and get meditation done by somebody else for you. You need to learn yourself. You need to experience it yourself. This is experiential knowledge. Okay? And this was the laboratory what was the laboratory? It was their own body and their mind. They learned to manage their mind using their body. So body was used as a vehicle in this particular life, and the main attainment of samadhi was the main goal of these sages. And how they did this? Through Hatha Yoga, through Raja Yoga, through Patanjali Yogas, various forms of yogas. Okay? So what was this? All these experiences have been documented in various sutras and various texts. Garanda Samhita, Hatha Ratnavali, okay? In Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Vyasa Bhasha of Patanjali Yoga Sutras, and so many more. Yoga Upanishads, Upapuranas, and Puranas as well. Okay? And these have been passed on to the disciples over centuries. And we know about their experiences even today through these particular texts. Okay? And how is this related to yoga research? Now, how do you understand what is really happening in your mind? It is through real experiments which can happen when you do a meditation. So the real powers of yoga comes not from your asana alone or a pranayama alone. It comes from managing your mind. You have a mind, you have a brain, you have an autonomic nervous system which doesn't listen to you. Your heart rate is not under your control. Sweating is not under your control. Okay? So many of these functions inside your body are not under your control. They are autonomic. How do you gain control over them? It's by controlling those very centers which control these functions. And this can happen only with meditation, not with any other form of yoga. So I'll come to this. So we are much interested to know what is happening in your body when you feel so wonderful when you practice yoga and as well as meditation. The kind of restfulness which we get after meditation, what is it related to? We want to understand this. The first research on yoga started off in 1883 by Swami Kolyananda. He established Kaivala Dham there, and a lot of research and experiments started happening in this Kaivala Dham during the early 1920s. And we had a journal called Yoga Mimamsa, which was coming up in the year 1924, pre-independence, the first research journal on yoga. Okay? And he did a lot of work with this. And, okay, so I think I went to the last slide, other slide. So a lot of studies were done in Kaivala Dham during that period. So basically they started using a spirometer, a kymograph to look at kumbhaka. What happens when you hold the breath? What happens to the brain blood flow? What happens to your lungs? What happens to your human physiology? Okay? And then you had scientists who were intrigued by the siddhis and siddhis of the great yogis in India. And these are two important scientists who came, Dr. Wenger from California University and Dr. Bakshi from Michigan University. They were impressed by Swami Kumalananda. They came down to India, brought EEGs, ECG, different kinds of instruments, physiological instruments, which was not there in India during that time, the pre-independence time. They came down to India in 1957 and all. They started doing a lot of work. They started looking at samadhi. They had people, yogis who could do really samadhi. They could be put in an airtight box, and for 8 days, they were in an airtight box without oxygen, without food, without water. Okay? And they documented this. And they documented this of Yogi Satyamurthy. And it's also been published in a journal. I'll come to that later on. So they came to the conclusion that samadhi can't be equated to a hypnotic condition. It is something different altogether. Okay? So what were these people, when these people started coming up, the AIMS also in Delhi also got interested in the physiology behind the yoga. Dr. B.K. Anand, the renowned physiologist of AIMS, he started working with this group and he started working on yogis. These yogis could increase your heart rate to 350 per minute, 400 per minute. They could create an atrial flutter. People die with that. You know, when you have atrial fibrillation, you go to an ICU immediately, right? But these people could do at their will. Nothing could happen to them. They were beyond the boundaries of physiology, beyond the boundaries of science. How was this happening? How could they control the heart rate? How could they increase it at will, decrease it at will? Increase the BP also at will, decrease it at will. This is what was happening, and this was published in a very big journal called Circulation. It's a very high impact journal, okay, during those times. So what this was, another study was there, where they were doing voluntary control of heartbeat surpassing yoga. Why? The reason is because meditative traditions are more popular in the West compared to yoga. Yoga traditions started up just coming up in the late 90s and 2000, whereas meditative traditions have been there from 1960s onwards. Okay, there's a lot of research into meditative traditions are still happening in the Western region. Okay, so what is meditation? Mind control, calming of the mind, sublimation of neuronal activity. DMN is nothing but default mode network, we call it as. Okay, I'll come to that later on. So focusing, there are two types of meditation. One, you focus on a single thought, any prayer, word, whatever it is, any object, whatever it is, light, whatever it is. And try to see that you erase all other thoughts away from this one, single thought. So focusing on any one object is focusing kind of meditation. Or other one is called open monitoring meditation. What is open monitoring? Don't do anything. Just allow what is happening, just observe what is happening inside your mind. What thoughts come, what thoughts go. Don't do anything. Stay passive observer. Okay? As you keep on doing it, slowly the thoughts will sublimate and you will start getting calmed down, or you will have the silence. Okay? That's called open monitoring, and this is also called as mindfulness also. Okay? So you have different types of meditation, Om meditation, mantra meditation, light, mindfulness, etc. All of them do the same thing. All of them bring about alpha waves and theta waves. They help in calming down the mind. So you may use different means of doing it, but all of them, the goal is the same. Okay? So what happens with this meditation here? This hormone called GABA, which you can see, this is a calming neurotransmitter which increases in great quantities in the brain. Okay? This is a calming neurotransmitter. It calms down the areas of the brain. It slows down the brain completely. It slows down the electrical activities of the brain. So it is not only about the electrical activity of the brain, it's also about these neurotransmitters. Okay? So this GABA is a very important neurotransmitter which plays a very, very important role, as well as last one is called the endorphins, the euphoria neurotransmitters, which are also important, which come up in the later stages of meditation. When you do advanced meditation, you can get endorphins also. Okay? So we'll come to some more this thing. So I said to you, these alpha waves, you can see the frequency is coming down drastically. And if you compare this here with the frequency with all these things, you can look at the states of their mind. Alpha waves, you are calm, you have creative visualization, you are just focusing on a single thought or object, that visual area is lighted up. Whereas in theta waves, deep relaxation, meditation, your parietal lobe is slightly active. Okay? When you go to delta waves are coming up, you go to deep sleep kind of state. You're awake, but you're going to a deep sleep state of mind. Okay? This is what happens. See the number of waves. The waves is very, very low waveform here. Okay? So this is what is happening with these different frequencies of these waves. So when you have beta waves, high beta waves, you have anxiety, stress, nervousness, panic attacks. When you have mid and low frequency beta waves, alertness and focus and concentration. So initially, when you do concentration meditation, you have more beta waves. Okay? And here, what is the hormone released here? Neurotransmitter, dopamine here. When you have alpha waves, when you start peaceful, when you start relaxing, you have serotonin and endorphins. Then when you have theta waves, when you calm and meditative deep contentment, you have GABA, high levels of GABA and serotonin, and endorphins and human growth hormone as well. Okay? When you go to delta, deep sleep states, dreamless sleep, reduced thought, oneness is there, you have high growth hormone and melatonin. So these are the physiological mechanisms by which not just the electrical activity, the hormones, the neurotransmitters also change in the brain with respect to your depth of meditation. Okay? So what is happening with brain? What happens to brain when you do meditation? Okay? As you grow old, you know what is happening? You have the nerve cells making connections to each other, right? They make more connections. It is called plasticity. The more the connections they make, better memory you have, better attention span you have. In Alzheimer's disease and dementia patients, the connections are lost. You have forgetfulness, you have short-term memory loss, you have cognitive decline, you don't have proper attention span, you don't have proper memory, you don't have mental speed. Okay? All the cognitive functions are getting lost as you grow old. So what does yoga do here? It connects the brain again, rewires the brain once again. So it's called as neural plasticity. And what happens here in brain, this yoga, by doing yoga, this increased gray matter density. As you grow old, the gray matter density keeps coming down. It gets thinning out. Whereas with yoga, you can preserve the gray matter. Okay? So this is why yoga is very useful in aging population. Okay? So now what happens in meditation? The basic aspects of meditation is it works on the frontal part of your brain, the frontal lobe. Dorsoprefrontal cortex and the frontal lobe of the brain. I won't go into details of the centers to confuse you. So what happens here is, this is a regulatory center. The activity in the frontal lobe increases here and it goes to the association area. Okay? And surrounding areas where the thought processes are there, the parietal areas, they get deactivated. Okay? Second thing, there's increase in GABA neurotransmitter. So what is this GABA doing? It's a calming neurotransmitter. So it calms down the nerves. It reduces the firing of these neurons. Okay? And decreases stimuli arriving at parietal lobe. So the amount of stimuli arriving at your lobe itself is coming down because of the GABA levels. So it is like subduing the thought process inside the mind. Calm down, calm down. It's doing the job of calming down. It enhances the sense of focus, so it makes you more focused when you do meditation. Decrease in orientation association area is there, the right parietal lobe. Sense of space, sense of wholeness is there when you start doing the meditation step 2. And step 3, it goes into the hippocampus and amygdala. Now these two are very important. Hippocampus is a memory center. Amygdala is a fear center. Okay, when you have tension, stress and anything is there, this part of the brain is also called the emotional brain, or the primitive brain we call it as. This is the brain which you need to get control of. Hypothalamus and amygdala. You get control of this brain, then you can do anything. Then you have no fear, nothing, let me tell you. Okay, and this is where meditation works on. It gives a different kind of sensory perception to hypothalamus and to the amygdala. What this perception gives? Of emptiness. Now these are all expecting some sort of thought, you know. They're expecting some negative thought, aggressive thought, okay. Any sort of emotion it is expecting. Nothing is going there. Because you're doing meditation, emptiness is going there. That imprint stays inside your hypothalamus and your amygdala, okay. It influences them so drastically that the reactivity of these centers come down. So the ability of this, because when you have tension, it reacts faster. Some people become very angry very fast, right? They have impulsivity. That impulsivity comes down because they are slowing down. Okay? Then you go into the step 4, you have the ventromedial hypothalamus, parasympathetic nervous system is activated here, and that brings about relaxation response, slowing down. Responsible for calming down, relaxation, bliss, profound quiescence, feeling very happy, euphoric. All this happens because of this. Okay? And then all the left or right parietal areas are switched off, which is the thinking brain. The thinking brain also comes down, and slowly you have what is there? State of silence, shunyata. That is meditation. This is what happens when you do meditation. It just goes from the frontal part of the body, it deactivates other parts of the body which are very active in awake state, and so that you are calmed down. So when you look at Buddhist meditation, you have Nirmana Kaya we have, it's called waking state, Sambhoga Kaya, then Dharma Kaya we have. So waking, dreaming and sleeping state is what is told in the Buddhist meditation techniques. The same way when you talk about the Vedanta philosophy, we talk about Anandamaya Kosha, which is related to the state of absolute bliss in meditation in the Indian philosophy. So I won't go into more details about all this. So again, what happens here is this dorsolateral prefrontal cortex is the one which is very useful in meditation. It's also called as a default mode network. It brings emotional balance. It rewires the emotional brain. Okay, it brings empathy. It brings self-observation, morality. So the previous speaker was talking about how meditation can make you more empathetic, having empathy to the fellow beings around you. This is what happens because of this particular center. Okay? And meta-awareness, awareness of awareness, we call this as. When you do open monitoring meditation, your mind is completely aware of it. A very important area of the brain called prefrontal areas, which are called middle prefrontal areas, are more activated when you do this awareness kind of meditation or open monitoring meditation. Okay? So this is exactly what you want to learn in meditation. The blue area is the one which needs to be activated in meditation. What does this blue area do? It can modulate pain. You know, such an extent, people are talking about Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So he was a very great avid meditator. So he had throat cancer. I don't know if most of you know about or not. He had a throat cancer. He underwent a throat surgery without anesthesia. Without anesthesia. He just went into trance meditation. He asked the doctor to do the surgery on his throat cancer. Okay? Because of what? He activated his frontal lobe. This inhibits all the pain pathways. Okay? And you look at the red color one there on top. This is the anti-cingulate cortex, the pituitary amygdala, which is activated in the fear centers. These are the stress centers. So all these centers get deactivated, whereas the frontal regulatory centers on top of the frontal brain get activated, and this is responsible for all the effects of your meditation. Okay? So this is what you see: increased awareness, attention, mindfulness, concentration, and you have purpose and meaning in life. So meditation changes somebody's personality totally. Okay? Because of these different areas of the brain getting activated. And this is the physiology and secret behind meditation. And why I say this is, if you look at the Western population, look at even Indian population today, the number of cases of depression is increasing. People with suicidal tendencies, you can see youngsters getting into suicide, you know. So that kind of thing is happening because you have got caught in the worldly pleasures. What happens in the rat race? You're always behind power, you're always behind money, you're hungry for all the materialistic pursuits. You're just caught in the rat race. When you start doing meditation, you tend to let go of everything. You don't have interest in all this. And when you don't have interest in all this, consequences don't matter to you. Isn't it? Consequences don't matter to you anymore. So that is what is meditation. So to get to that particular extent, you need to cultivate the mind. And the way of doing that is by systematic practice of yoga. Okay? Create that mind, create that environment where you can make your mind calm and go ahead blissfully in the path of meditation. So just I thank you all for your present hearing. Thank you all.
For more details about Project Excellence, write to us at excellence@buddhaceo.org.